Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner Podcast. My name is Coach Scott. I'll be your host today. Guys, I got a great show for you today. I got a great guest. Actually, two of them going to come on in just a moment. First things first, as always, you can find this in the back episodes of our podcast at our website, ordinarymarathoner.com. Check that out if you get a chance. You can also find them at the aggregators, places like Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. If you are watching on our YouTube channel, thank you so much, first of all. But second of all, if you don't mind, do us a favor and hit that red subscribe button down below. It really helps out the channel. We're really trying to grow out that subscriber base, and we appreciate that very much. We've got a lot going on behind the scenes, guys. So the first thing I'm just going to mention, or really the only thing I want to mention today, is that we will be bringing back the Ordinary Marathon for a special fall issue. In fact, we're going to call it the Ordinary Half Marathon. It starts in November. It's going to be, November 27th through the 29th. It's a Friday through Sunday. So a shortened period of time. We're going to call it the Ordinary Half Marathon. And here is the best part of the Ordinary Half Marathon. If you are registered, if you are signed up for the 2021 full Ordinary Marathon, our annual 10-day virtual charity event, this is free. This is basically free. So all you got to do is go over to ordinarymarathon.com, register for next year's event, 10 days of running. A lot of people try to run a marathon in that period of time. You don't necessarily have to, but if you can cover 26.2 miles over those 10 days, that's wonderful. We're kind of bringing that premise here over our weekend. So we're looking at the Ordinary Half Marathon over the 27th, 28th, 29th. We're hoping you guys take pictures. We're hoping you guys go out there and try to get a half marathon done. We know a lot of people this time of year. Normally you got your races, you've been training, you've got your marathons, you've got your goal races going on right now at this moment, and a lot of those races have been canceled. So we're trying to do our best to kind of rally the troops here, get something going on in the fall, and work towards, keeping those good habits, keeping that training intact, so that you haven't been losing, and something that you can rally around in this the last couple months here. October, November at least, of 2020, and hopefully we start clean in 2021, and things start looking up a little bit better, and we can start racing again. That'll be wonderful. So check it out, ordinarymarathon.com. Get registered for this year's race. Actually, it's next year's race that you'll register for, and we're going to do a bunch of fun things. We're looking for some raffles already, and we hope to do some raffles. Like we always do. We hope to maybe even do a slideshow if we can produce enough pictures over those 3 days, so that we get it, we can have something. We can have something to celebrate here to kind of round out 2020. And I know a lot of you guys can't wait to get this thing over with, but we can't either. But we're hoping to just kind of bring it into a nice positive ending of the year, at least when it comes to running and training and all that good stuff. Had a lot of people we've talked to about this race already, and we're looking up. Things are looking up. We're pretty optimistic about it. So get over to ordinarymarathon.com and register for that race. Let us, without further ado, bring in today's guests. I have not one, but two of them. One is a returning guest, though. It's nice to have them both here, Danielle and Michael Rosvally. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Scott.
Welcome back to you, Danielle. This is it was a little over a year that we talked, I think, last time.
I guess it was. It's funny because time has no meaning anymore.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't. None. But you think about it, it was kind of like those couple weeks after Mont Tremblant.
So probably.
Was it before or after Berlin?
Oh, I think it was before we left for Berlin.
Yeah. So it'd been right about this time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So it was right about a year ago. I don't know. For me, it seems like it was longer.
Longer and shorter simultaneously.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It feels like it's been a while since we've had you here. Well, yeah. You know what it is? It's like when no one's racing, it's like, what do you talk about? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. But let's start by sort of let's go back and kind of reverse the clock a little bit and sort of where we left off. We had you on the podcast a year ago. You finished Mont Tremblant. You both participated in Mont Tremblant, and you had an incredible moment in that race. And why don't we just give everyone sort of a short recap of what happened. And then we'll talk about what happened to Mike, too.
Yeah. The short version is I finished DLF at Mont Tremblant, and basically, like the last
DFL, by the way. DFL.
Oh, DFL.
You screw it, yeah, DL.
I always say DLF. It sounds better.
Sounds better. It does roll off the tongue a little bit nicer.
Dead last finisher, I guess?
Yeah,
it works. It works, too, yeah. My way is a little dirtier.
Yeah. So I finished the very last finisher, and for the last like 10K of the run, I had like a whole. So when you are the last finisher at Mont Tremblant, I can't speak for every Ironman. I assume everybody has their own system, but at Mont Tremblant, they have like this whole parade of people who wind up running you in. So I had like all of the bike support guys, and like every time I turned around, there were more of them. And then for a while, there was actually the sag wagon. So I had an entire bus behind me. And then eventually, like this hype man race announcer guy, not Mike Riley, he was waiting at the finish line, but like this other guy came, and they're all like speaking in English and French, and I speak French, but by that point in the Ironman, you're lucky if you remember your own name. And then like they also at Tremblant have like a couple volunteers, they dress up as angels to run you in.
Yeah, complete with wings.
So I
should ask them to borrow the wings. That might have helped you get there a little faster.
Yeah, 16 hours, 59 minutes, 29 seconds by the big clock over the arch. It was actually 17 hours and 58 seconds.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. We both have that in common. We don't talk about that. We're gonna, we'll get that back though one day next year.
Yeah.
Well, next year for you, I might have to wait too. But Mike, you ran that race, but I don't want to like kind of gloss over that because it was an incredible moment and I remember you saying that you wanted to meet Mike Riley and you were just such in a rush to get through the finish line that you didn't really get a chance to high five him or anything. And then we kind of hooked you up. Didn't he call you?
Yeah. Then like, I come on Scott's podcast and Scott's like, hey, I know you like said you had some things to say to Mike Riley. And like through the magic of this podcast, I get this call from this phone number. I don't know who it is. I think it goes to robocall. And I listen to the answering, machine. It's like, hey, Danielle, this is Mike Riley. And I was like, no, it's not. So I like, called him back and he picked up. So we all talked together.
And I got to tell you, what a cool guy. I mean, he was on, and the reason we were able to set that up was because he was on the podcast just a few weeks before you were. And so I had talked to him recently. So I just mentioned to him, I just sent him an email and I assumed he was going to ask for your email address and he asked me for your phone number. And then I'm like, oh, I don't have your phone number. I just got you. I know you through Facebook and everything. So I remember writing Mike and I didn't know Mike at the time. And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to write this guy and ask for his wife's phone number. And that looks weird. And like, no, Mike Riley's going to call. He'll understand that. And then the funny thing was Mike didn't
say that.
Huh?
You didn't say anything about Mike Riley.
Oh, I didn't drop that. Really? Well, maybe
I knew you were talking, so I knew it was like no big deal.
So I remember, but I didn't think, he emailed me, asked me for a phone number. I didn't have it, and it took you a while to get back to me. He actually looked you up in the finisher, in the finisher data, and got the number on his own and called you before Mike even gave it to me. And I'm just like, I am. When celebrities do that kind of thing, it's like, it's unbelievable that guy goes that far out of his way.
Yeah, he's awesome.
It was such amazing. A magical, cool thing for him to do. Like, I was so grateful to everybody involved. I still have the voicemail message, like, on my phone. Because, like, one of the things he said, he was like, I just wanted a chance to say it again. You are an Ironman. So I'm like, not getting rid of that one.
No, I would definitely hold on to that one. Well, Mike, let's return to you now. So you did compete in the Mont Tremblant, a little bit different result. What happened in your race?
Yeah, so day started off pretty good. I started the swim and finished the swim about 15 minutes faster than I had projected, which was awesome. I felt great coming out of the water. I had a little hiccup in transition where I forgot my sunglasses and my bike gloves, but other than that, transition went fine. Got on the bike, and just as you're getting off Monte Ryan and turning on to 117, I'm just cruising an arrow, and my hamstring on my right side just started to give me pains like I never had before. Like I've never had pulled hamstring or anything like that, and up until that point I was cruising along, and then I spent the next 106 miles having to hop off the bike, stretch it out. I missed the bike cutoff by I think 2 minutes or something.
Ah, man.
Yeah, it was brutal.
That kind of injury, though, you never know, too, going out on the run. You might have hurt yourself worse if you tried to do it. You think so?
Yeah, so I got off the bike. I cruised in, and the timing guy was there collecting chips. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, man, you missed the cutoff." And at that point, I was so tired. I was in my hamstring was hurting so much. that I was like, yeah, I didn't bother me at all, right? And so I walked into transition, and there were a couple of people who were ahead of me, and we're all like, yeah, it sucks. You know, we all had our individual stories. Like, I remember talking to one guy who was fit guy. He was stacked, really, and he's like, I'm from Chicago and couldn't train on hills. I was like,
Oh, yeah, well, you need that.
yeah. I was like, I feel your pain, dude. I totally understand. So, you know, I you know, got my stuff, stretched it out, and it loosened up pretty well. I probably would have been fine on the run, because, you know, I got a little bit of food, and then I immediately started tracking her, right? You know, because I'm like, okay, how's she doing? Because I knew she was ahead of me, and I knew she made it out to the run. And like there was one point on your first lap where I ran out and caught up to you just to check on you.
Yeah, he caught me like right before I was coming up the hill into so like at the end of the first lap, and that's when I uttered the infamous words, right? Like, because I was like so much in pain. I had some nutrition stuff. If you're interested, go back and listen to the podcast. It's a longer story, but and I like saw him, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna quit. I don't think I can do it. And he gave me like the pep talk to end all pep talks, and my parting words were, I am never fucking doing this again.
So yeah, she was coming in.
So much for that.
Yeah,
Here we are.
I knew the moment she said it to him. Like, I think I even said it to you at the time. I'm like,
I was in too much pain.
I was like, we'll talk about that later. I knew she was gonna want to do it again. Just probably not that course.
You guys just had such an. I mean, I know you didn't finish, but it's like, what an epic day for the two of you.
It was fine. It didn't actually bother me, right? The only thing that bothered me was like, why did my hamstring give out, right? And since I figured out probably what went wrong with the training cycle.
You think it was training? You think it was nutrition? You think it was
training? It was training.
Yeah.
I didn't spend a lot of time in aero when training, because it was rough on my back. So I would go in and out of aero, you know, when I could and whatnot. But what I should have done is focused a little bit more on mobility, like on back mobility and stuff like that. So most of my time, and at the time when I was training, I was like, oh, it's no big deal if I'm like, you know, if I'm up on the hood, it means I'm less aerodynamic, which means the ride's gonna be harder. So that's good, right? That, you know, what didn't really occur to me was like how the change in position was going to affect the muscle groups and whatnot. So when I started the bike at Tremblant, I was like, okay, we got to be in aero because we got to make the times. Aero is better. And I dropped right in the aero, and actually my back was fine. But it was, you know, when you go in aero, you use slightly different muscle groups, right?
Yeah, that's true. The smallest change in any position.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, you know, you almost said it before when you said you could have ran on that leg, because you would think that, you know, you're using the same legs on the bike that's used on the run, but they're subtly just so different that it is different muscle groups. And
these are my running legs.
Yeah, and I did run on it later on that night, because on her second lap I was looking at her projected time, and there was one point when she was reaching the top of the turnaround on the second loop, and she was projected to finish at like 12:30. I was like,
I remember that part of the story.
Oh, that's not good at all. So I was like, we were out there with her parents and a friend of ours, and as they were waiting at the finish line, it's like, I gotta go. I gotta go check in with her and find out what's going on. So
you knocked out those last few miles at like a ridiculous pace too, if I remember.
Yeah, she crushed it, and so I had to run out there just to check on her. And by the time I got out there, she'd already started to pick up the pace. I think I made her like three
up into the hills too.
Like yeah, and I made her like 3.5 miles out or something like that. And then we ran back in.
And that was really, I mean, that was even just the beginning for you guys, because you guys had you had to run like 8 marathons the next 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, that went a lot better.
Yeah, so like just like a word caution: don't enter all of the world major lotteries in the same year, assuming you won't get it. We didn't get into all of them, but we got into 3 of them.
So let's see, we entered Chicago and we entered Berlin. And we got into both. And I remember when we were signing up for it, looking at it, they were like 2 weeks apart or something like that. 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks apart. I was like, we won't get into both. You know, what are the chances?
Chance.
No chance. We got into And then I had already, I had an ankle injury in 2018, so I had to defer the New York Marathon in 2018 to 2019, and you only get one deferral. So I was like, I'm definitely running this year if I hook or by crook, right?
And then at some point during the year, I decided,
Marine Corps is a good idea.
Personal events in my life, I was like, I would really like to go to Marine Corps this year. Which is between Chicago and New York, if you're not familiar.
Yeah. So, and she was running Marine Corps, so I was like, I gave about 3 seconds of thought. I'm like, I want to run Marine Corps.
There you go.
That was dumb. That was not a good idea.
Don't do what we did. Don't try this at home, kids. That was
well,
hard.
we met you at 2 of those races. We met you at DC, and we met you up in New York. So that was it worked for us.
It was good. I mean, it was fun. It was really good. I am not going to advertise what my times were on the back half of those races.
Who needs to? You got a medal? You got a medal. You're good.
Yeah, exactly. I PR'd in Berlin, and then everything else was like gravy after that, right? Although my New York time was faster than my Marine Corps time, but that had a lot more.
Marine Corps had weather.
Yeah, it had a lot more to do with the weather at Marine Corps that day.
Yeah. Oh God, that day. I actually didn't run that day. I was there watching you guys, and I spent most of the day in the hotel going, I don't understand how you guys are out there. It was
great until it stopped raining. So I'm sure your listeners have heard this, but like Marine Corps last year was rainy for the first couple hours, and then it went like boom, rain to 80 degrees and full sun.
Yeah. Oppressive heat. Yeah.
And I've never seen more people dropping on a race course than I did back half of that year.
Like flies.
It was like crazy. Marine Corps is great because they have Marines everywhere, and they, as volunteers and basically support for the race. And if there's anyone who knows how to deal with dehydrating runners, it's Marines. I want to say I saw 5 people literally pass out on the course. Yep. I remember on the bridge, so mile 21, you go over the bridge that's over the Potomac, and I remember seeing one woman walking up to a Marine saying, "I don't feel too," bam, drop right in his arms. Yeah.
That's rough. That's rough.
Yeah. It was bad. Part of the problem was it was rainy. It was cool. I don't think a lot of people hydrated well on the first half because you don't feel like you need to drink when it's torrential downpours and cool. And then the heat just spiked right up. It
was so bad. I was like, I'll be fine as long as it keeps raining. Crap.
Yeah. Can we get some of that rain back?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what made you guys go after that race and sign up for it again?
We love Marine Corps in general. So
did you sign up for it thinking that you were going to go there and run it again, or did you sign up for it? Okay.
When we registered, we were like, when did we register?
I honestly don't remember. It was early in the year, though.
I think it was like before pandemic land started really, really breaking into full effect. But when we registered,
January, February.
Yeah,
it was around then. It was before the scope of the pandemic was really clear.
Right.
I think because you signed up. Or you lotteried in. Right?
I lotteried in. That's right. I got in on the lottery, and he got a bib from somebody who was selling.
Yeah, because I think I got my bib. Right. I got my bib thinking I may or may not use this, but I want to have the slot for when she defers, I can defer, right?
But so the other thing about Marine Corps is if you run it 5 times, you get into the Marine Corps Marathon Club, which means you can run it whenever you want. You don't have to lottery or anything. Yeah. So that's sort of been like a long-term goal for us. We were like, we're not going to do 5 consecutive, but this is year 4, so maybe we will.
So you get credit then towards that for doing the because you both are doing the virtual, which is now how is that? How are they doing that? Is there a certain time frame that you have to do it?
No, there's no time cutoffs for the MCM virtual, but you do need to run it as one chunk, and you do have to send like a Garmin workout or like some proof that you actually did it.
Yep.
But they removed all the time cutoffs for all the races this year, the 10K, the 50K, and
beat the bridge and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
that doesn't make sense. There's no bridge to beat.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't matter. So.
Right.
And they're just going to be stuck with a room full of medals anyway.
Right. So by the way, that race, that race has the coolest medals, and I think this year they made something special too.
That was the
Yeah.
other reason.
Coolest medals, hands
That was the
down.
other reason why I bought the bib. Is as soon as I heard what the medal was going to be, I'm like, by hook or by crook, I want to get that medal.
So it's the
Yeah.
45th anniversary of Marine Corps. So they put sand from Iwo Jima into each of the medals, which is going to be very cool.
That is pretty cool. They probably just got it from the beach outside, but they're like, oh, we'll sell it.
Yeah, I don't really care. Yeah.
Actually, the funny thing is that it's the Marines. You can pretty much trust them. They would never do that. They like send people over. Nope, we need a little bit more sand. Just go out in the back. Nope, send them over.
Yep.
Send them back to Iwo Jima. We need some legit sand here. Anyway, you guys been training? Like, how has it been training? Is it different training for a virtual race that than, or have you been just sticking to a normal plan?
I want to say the one difference. So the couple differences this year. One, we hooked up with a run coach this year, which has been I highly recommend if it is in your budget that anyone out there who wants to do anything endurance related, anything athletic related, frankly, get a coach if you can. Because coaching is invaluable in terms of helping to improve your performance and getting an objective evaluation of where your performance actually is at. So we both hooked up with a run coach this year, which has helped enormously. I think the only difference for me is once it became clear that we weren't going to have any real races this year, or like all the races we had signed up for were going to be canceled or bumped or whatnot, like all the major races. I decided to go into PT to address some like niggling issues that I've been kind of like managing and ignoring for a while. And that was really smart. So I took, I think like 3 months to address like some calf tightness and some shin splint issues and stuff like that. And that was the big change in my training. So when I do the virtual, especially since the virtual wasn't going to have a cutoff, I'm only trained up to run a half right now. So I'm going to try and PR my half and then walk the rest of it. Yeah.
And for me, I decided very early on that I was going to start before the pandemic sort of became a thing. I knew this year that I wasn't going to be doing any Ironman races. So for so many years, it had been longer, more volume. So, after finishing my Ironman, I was like, what next? And Gordon Ramsay once said, well, you can either go longer or you can go faster. And I'm lazy, so I kept going longer. And that's kind of been what I've been doing until this year. I decided I want to start chipping away at my marathon time with the goal of breaking 5 hours, which is a big deal for me. I'm a backup pack runner.
Yeah. I'm with you. That's me right there. That 5 hour mark has been gold. And I finally beat it by like 20 seconds.
Nice.
Hartford last year. But yeah, that's exactly where I was. I was just sitting at that 5 to 6 hour, and I'm like, oh, it sucks. I just want to beat 5. I actually, what was my key? I'll tell you my key. Was intervals, walk intervals.
Oh yeah. Sorry, we're getting another guest. We had been using run walk intervals for everything, and they were really effective for getting through a race. Like if I'm having a rough day, they're really useful for me. But for speed, they had really taken a bite out of that. So I decided that to get closer to this, break 5 hour goal, that I needed to work on speed. So I got together with my run coach, and we sort of made out a plan. And basically from January, the goal was going to be to attempt a marathon PR at Marine Corps. Cause I know the course, and it's a good course for a PR, to be honest. Like not too many hills. They're all at the beginning, basically.
Yep.
For the last like 200 meters.
What they do to you there, but
yeah. And like lots of support.
Yeah, you know what though, that last 200 meters, there's people there yelling at you to get up that hill, and it's like, it's got to be the easiest, ridiculous hill of all time, because it's just, you just gather everything you got left and you push up the hill and it's over before you know it. It's crazy.
It's short.
And you're like, I can literally see a Marine with a medal for me. Like we are making eye contact. So from January, I knew that was my plan. And then when the pandemic happened and race got canceled, I'm like, that doesn't change the plan, right? Like,
no.
There's no like race doesn't mean I'm not going to try my marathon PR.
Right. And one thing that we have to discuss here on the podcast today is your strength training.
Oh yeah.
Because one of the things that I was amazed at, it was, I mean, you have the weights out in the driveway in the middle of summer, and you lift it in the driveway. You're that person that lifts in the driveway.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You gotta do what you gotta do. We were lucky in that our CrossFit gym, while they were closed, was renting out the equipment. And we don't.
Oh, that's how you got it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, until we were able to acquire our own, which took, I think, like 3 months to.
You can't get that stuff anymore. You can't. It's impossible. I mean, they're all sold out.
Yeah, there's a couple places where you can go. There's a couple places like there's an Instagram account.
We've got tips
that you can follow where they'll tell you when stuff comes into stock. But even then, the lead time on them can be a couple months. So it took us like 3 months to put together a squat rack and a set of plates. It's not as many plates as we want, but it's good enough for what we need right now. But yeah, it's the only real space we had to do Olympic lifts. So
yeah,
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah,
Yep.
Our basement's not high enough to go overhead. You can squat in the basement.
Yeah.
You can bench in the basement. You can't clean or snatch in the basement. You gotta do that.
You know what? I have the same. Yeah, I have the same thing here. I do have a squat rack, but I had to get a shorter one, and I can't do anything overhead. It's just all it's shoulders and lower. So obviously, best of luck to you guys with your virtual race coming up. But then there's the one other thing, which is, yes, you told us that you were never going to do an Ironman again. We knew. I mean, I remember talking to Mike about it a little bit in. I believe we talked about it in DC.
Yeah.
About whether or not you were going to do another one, and I think you were kind of always on board, like you knew you had to do it again.
So yeah. So the question was, the second the chip came off my foot, I knew I was going back. The only question was when. Right.
Yeah.
So because of the impact of a training cycle with an Ironman, unless you're single and live alone, it impacts the household. So the only question was going to be when can we figure out when to put those training cycles in, so that like she's not stuck handling everything in the house. So this year, so originally it was going to be this year. And we had worked out, how to figure out how to get the training schedule in to the point where it worked. But next year was even like the new plan's even better because we're basically going to be on the same training cycle.
Well,
slightly off. It's only going to, like, when I'm peaking, she's going to be, close to it. But when she's in taper, I'll be in recovery. So
like I kept my word in that I am never ever doing that bike course again. The bike is.
I don't blame you. I did the half, and the thought of going back out for another loop off the half, God bless you.
Like the bike is definitely my weakest leg in the triathlon, and certainly things can change, and I hope they do over the course of the training season. But I have a very fraught relationship with my bike. Let's just put it that way. And so I knew I didn't want to do a hilly course, and I knew I didn't want to do Tremblant again. We had kind of so I put together a relay team to support him at Tremblant this year so that I could have an athlete wristband and be at the finish line waiting for him and be out on the course with him. But I very strategically, I was like, I'll run, gotta find somebody to do the other stuff.
Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah, was it yesterday or the day before? Sometime earlier this week, and it's like, oh, I'm doing the leg of an Iron. When you talk to other Ironman athletes, like, oh, I'm doing the relay, and it's like, oh, just the relay.
Right.
It's like, but you're running a marathon.
Yeah. I'm just
doing one leg. It's just the third. I'm just doing the run leg. It's a marathon. But I think that's awesome. And what a great way, maybe you guys, see each other back and forth on the course. Maybe if he needs a little bit of, maybe you guys do, you assume that if you're doing the relay, you'll be ahead of him because obviously you get more people doing it. But, if you're on the second loop and he's on the first, or if you guys pass each other, if you see that he needs help and, you're not doing it for time,
it's almost
really cool that you guys can be out there together.
Yeah, it's almost certain she's going to be on the run course before me because the person we have lined up to do the swim and the bike is faster than me on the bike and faster than me on the swim. So.
Yeah.
She's kind of
So that's great though. That's great. I mean, I think it's awesome that you guys do this stuff together. It's and I think that, you talked about like kind of keeping the house together and doing all that you can train together is just such an advantage and so supportive. If one person's kind of feeling low or feeling down, you have that built-in sort of accountability in the household. So,
I always say, I don't know how people do this without a supportive spouse, right?
I could see it on a marathon cycle. It's a marathon cycle that like you're, especially if you're fast, you're not going to be out there for that long. So you can get up early and not miss like most of your time with the family, right? Maybe you get up at 6 for your long run on a weekend, you're out the door, maybe you're back by like 9 or 10, right? And then you have the rest of the day with the family. It's not too bad. With the Ironman training cycle, like your long week, especially if you're backup pack, you're gonna have like a couple of 10-hour days in there. You're just gone for the day, and it's not like you're gonna be productive when you come back because you're gonna be exhausted.
And double weekends, it's not like you're just doing a long run on Saturday and then taking it easy on Sunday. You're probably doing you're gonna do like a century ride on Saturday and follow it up with 15 miles on a 15-mile run on Sunday or something like that.
Yeah,
it gets if you're not both on board there, it's can get a little hairy.
And I can't, we don't have kids. I really don't know how people do this with children.
Divorce. That's why you
divorce.
Divorce, so the kids are out the door already, right?
No, it's I mean, Stephanie does marathon training usually. Not this year. She's kind of off. She slid back a bit. We're gonna get her back in.
Who hasn't, right?
It's been really hard, and I got to tell you, a lot of people. I don't know if you guys, you guys read the group and hang out in the group sometimes, but definitely more messages this year of people just struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that this was a really good year to address the PT was key for me because now I'm running basically pain free, which is nice. And then having short-term goals, right? Just working with a coach has allowed me to kind of focus on just what are my goals for the week. We have a conversation, set what the long-term goal is, but having someone to weekly check in with, hey, how you doing? It's literally just an email conversation back and forth. It's not that big a deal. Helps keep the focus on the here and now and just getting the workouts done, which has been fantastic for pandemic land, right?
And for me, to be super honest, the training schedule, Aries, what are you doing? The training schedule is the one thing that I can control, right? I can't control anything going on in the world, but I can control if I got my run in that day. So it's helpful for me. I'm dealing with a little bit of an injury right now. I have a foot tweak. So right at my peak / taper, that control was taken away from me, but it'll be fine in long run. It's just one more thing to deal with. But I totally understand why people are struggling, but I invite everybody who is to take a look at, how few things in your life are under your control right now. And maybe your run can be one of them.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually an interesting point. I like the way you put that. It's it's the one way you can kind of keep things normal, I guess, try to make it seem normal just by doing the things that you normally do. Things that, it's funny though. It's training. I was going to say the things that make you happy, but sometimes training doesn't make you happy. It's it's, you want the payoff at the end. And then when you get the payoff, it's then all the training was worth it. But without that payoff, sometimes it's even if it's, the training is the benefit, it is the journey kind of part of it. But, without that thing at the end, that nice shiny, that moment, actually, it's more the moment than it is the medal. But
I think a lot of people, I think the focus is too short this year, right? The races, they're canceled this year, but they're not canceled forever.
Right.
It's a big question mark when we'll get to cross the finish line again, but it will happen. I guarantee it will happen. So I think if the focus is too much on that moment that's going to happen next week, then maybe just sort of widen the lens a bit until you get to something that works.
I think it's just, too, it's easy to kind of just skip a day here and there when you don't have that race, and then a day becomes 2 and 2 becomes a week, and then, and it's easy to snowball. And I think that's happened to a bunch of people, and people are just struggling. But, hopefully, we see the community kind of rally, get together, and push forward. I think it's awesome that you guys are really getting behind the virtual race. I know a bunch of people that have done that and done it successfully, where they just have hopped on board with the virtual race and used that to sort of maintain training. I think that's great.
I'll admit, like, I actually hate virtual races. Right up until this year, right? I always saw them as like a ridiculous money grab. I think the worst one I saw was
we have one just before you start.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yours though.
So like the first one, I think the first virtual race I ever saw was when Disney shut down, had to shut down the Disneyland races.
Yeah.
They converted them over to virtuals. I'm like, this is the biggest money grab I've ever seen. They're just paying me to, I'm just paying exorbitant prices for a medal for a training run, right?
It's worth noting that Disney virtuals are like 100, 150
yeah,
bucks.
Yeah.
Like,
This year, however, it's like it's been nice to have something as like a focal point to train for, right? And it's nice to have something on the calendar, because when you have a deadline of some kind, it doesn't matter what the deadline is. It helps motivate you, helps you keep on path. So
yeah. Now, are you guys? Have you even started training like with thinking about next year's Ironman in mind, or is it just about the?
So like I have a long-term plan. It's going to be get to the Marine Corps Marathon. But like part of my training for this is I'm only running 3 days a week. The rest of it is cross training for bike. Which is usually on the bike.
Yeah.
So I have like
that's good. That's smart.
Yeah. So I'll have a hike-ins day on the bike. I'll have a big ring day on the bike, big ring or hills. And then I'll do a long bike. So that's generally my 6 days right there. And then that's just to keep the legs spinning. But the focus has been primary. So if I'm going to miss a workout, I'm going to miss a bike workout as opposed to a run workout, because my focus right now is on the run.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm going to do a quick build phase with my coach. We're going to 10 to 12 weeks after Marine Corps. That's going to focus more speed work on the run. And then that will get us into January, in which case we're going to start looking at starting the triathlon cycle. And that point I should be doing, when we start focusing on the triathlon cycle, I'll be doing my long bikes will be, 2 hours. I'll be ready to run. I'll be like half marathon distance trained up. And that's a pretty good base to start for Tremblant. So.
And I should say his training is very different from my training. This season, I've been doing a lot of high mileage running, which is different. I've never trained like that for a marathon before. This will be my 10th marathon, and I almost always do very low mileage integrated with like strength and short sort of power speed endurance style workouts. And then once I'm finished, so I'm doing the Marine Corps, I'm doing the marathon, and then I'm signed up for the 50K, but my coach was like, you can't race both. So I'm racing the marathon, and the 50K is kind of like, just do it till it gets done. And I'm doing that because you get some extra bling. So to be clear, if you do like the 10K, the 50K, and the marathon, you get like a challenge coin. And I was like, sign me up, because apparently that's all it takes. And then
so you're doing a 50K.
My first, yeah.
Oh wow! I didn't know this. This is great. All right.
I'm full of secrets, Scott, like a pinata.
No, I think that's great. I've been thinking about signing up for that for next year, but we can talk about this later.
You can sign up for it. You can still sign up for it now.
That's true.
I got all 2 weeks to train for it.
All the Marine Corps races are still open.
So once I get done with the 50K, I'm going to do a recovery and then a quick speed cycle with my run coach. So the coach we're working with right now is running specific. I'll do a quick speed cycle with her and combine that with a barbell strength cycle, because it'll kind of be the last chance I have to do that in this training cycle 2020, 2021. And then I'll transition to triathlon. I don't think we mentioned the Ironman that I'm doing is Maryland.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I do want to talk about that.
Yeah. Which is a little later than Tremblant, so a couple weeks later. So we'll be peaking at different times.
But you're doing the relay with him still,
right.
And then a couple weeks later, then you got to do a full Ironman, which is it's a nice little training run for you.
Yeah, no big deal.
You're doing volume. You need volume. You said this is.
All you need, and like oh God, if only there were well-marked, safe bike courses that I could ride in the days before the Ironman in Mont Tremblant.
That's true. That's true. Although people get on that highway and I know it's a big shoulder, but it's still like a.
We've done it.
We did it in training.
Yeah.
I know people do it. It just freaks me out. I'm a big wuss though.
It's not too bad. Except the one recommendation, if you do ever go up there, if you're going to do Mont Tremblant, you're going to go up there ahead of time to train and ride the highway. The shoulder's huge. All the drivers are used to it. There are tons of cyclists out there. So in that regards, the drivers in general are very aware that there are cyclists on the road with you, which is good. I highly recommend that you drive the route first, because sometimes there's road work being done and that shoulder is non-existent, which happened to us when we were up there. We drove the course the day before and it was fine. We came back the next day and they had set up the barrels and the cones, and we're cruising down the big hill in 117, and down at the bottom was all the cones and the barrels and the signs saying shoulder closed, and we're going down 35 miles an hour down that hill right into it. And I was like, on
our tails,
brakes,
truck,
I hear you.
So
man,
we managed to stop and weave our way around it. It was a little bit unexpected. So, but yeah, it wasn't fun. It's not something I would normally do for a training ride. That being said, it's about as safe as you can make that.
Yeah.
So, you do get out when the trucks come by, you do feel it.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. I want to talk about Maryland in a second, but obviously, I mean, this is Mike, for you, this is a revenge race in a way.
I don't like looking at it that way because I think it's an unhealthy way of looking at it, right?
I love revenge races.
Yeah, but there's also I will cop to the fact that in the back of my mind there's definitely the thought that this course is not beating it, right?
Well, you know what it is? It's like you have to be ready. It's like you know what you're up against, and you've kind of made some observations about your training and how your aero position and not training in hills and all that good stuff. Oh, by the way, the one thing I meant to mention was I used to get back pain all the time, and I actually stopped getting it I don't know if I should attribute it to this, but I did a lot of yoga.
Yeah.
Which I've never done yoga in my life. I've never thought of myself as a yoga person, but within probably for about 3 months, I did a lot of yoga. And when I finished Lake Placid, I had no back pain at all.
So that was so in terms of the training things, one of the other things I should have mentioned is on my goal spreadsheet, I added mobility work for the year. Let me look it up. I basically my original goal was to do 45 minutes of mobility work every week. Very simple, right? Just get the 45 minutes in, and some of that is stretching out the back, stretching out the hamstrings, and whatnot. And my current status is I hit that goal back in July, so I blew that one out of the water. Where is it? I am currently averaging 277 minutes a week of mobility work.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great. And that's the stuff that's going to help you.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the stuff that's really
it's made a huge difference. So some of that accumulation is because I counted the PT work as mobility work.
That's fine. I think strength training too.
Yeah, that was the reason why I did that, is because most of it was mobility work, because it was calf stretch. It was attacking my calves and posterior chain and whatnot. But it also helped me just checking that box on my spreadsheet and inputting the time helped me stay on track, making sure I got the mobility work in. Because as soon as I went into PT, it was basically 2 or 3 times a day sometimes. Granted, it was 5 minutes of work sometimes. Stretch, do the calves, do the P chain, and do that 3 times a day, right? Because I sit in the office chair all day because I work from home. But being able to check that box really helped, right? Really helped keep me on track. And then after that, it's just I've managed to roll that into keeping it going every day, getting something in. So
one of the best things we've done for our training regime is we have all of our mobility tools in front of our TV.
Yes. Yeah.
It's all in the living room. You don't have to you just get off the couch and pick up a lacrosse ball or the percussive massage gun or like whatever, but they're all there.
So yeah, I used to be very sedentary. Like I was your classic IT guy, way overweight, never moved, got like 1,000 steps a day. And then one day it finally was like, okay, I got to fix this. And one of the rules I made that I found like when I was first just trying to lose weight and get into some kind of healthy shape was I cannot watch TV unless I'm moving. So
That's smart, yeah.
Yeah, and so basically, and this is I don't know, back in 2015 or something like that, 2014, somewhere around there. And that suddenly, and just as soon, it was right after like Netflix got on the tablets and stuff like that. So it made it very easy for me to like go get on a treadmill and just start running and throw Netflix on. And once I stuck to that rule, that was a game changer for me.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's a great rule.
Yeah, it was a great rule. It helped me it didn't matter. I just had to be moving, right? So if I was burnt out from running the day before, it was get on the elliptical, and sit on the elliptical and just go nice and easy on the elliptical. Whatever it was, just had to be moving, watching TV. Since we've gotten into the races and stuff like that, my training has changed, and so that rule doesn't really apply. But I have like kind of an unwritten one now that if we're watching TV, we need to get some mobility in, and that is the other huge point that's occurred with like me being able to accumulate time with mobility. So if the TV's on, just stretch your hamstrings,
Yeah.
Go
I used to have my Xbox in front of my I had a stationary bike, and I had the Xbox in front of that, and the only way I was allowed to play the Xbox was if I was spinning the pedals on the bike. I don't have that anymore.
It's funny when before pandemic land hit, I had made a new rule for myself, which was I can't watch a movie unless I was on the bike, because our pain cave where the trainers are has a TV in front of it. So that was like I want to watch X movie, gotta go get on the bike. And it's like little stuff like that really, and at least for me, helps keeps me motivated, keeps me a little bit focused.
Right. As you have to like surprise your coach every once in a while. It's like Mike, you did 16 hours on the bike yesterday. Well, Lord of the Rings trilogy was on, and
we so right before we knew Tremblant wasn't happening, I think I was up to like 4 hours on the bike, and there's definitely I was working my way through the Marvel movies at that point.
Yeah, you got to kind of find a way to keep yourself busy on that bike sometimes. That's good stuff. So let's go back to you, Danielle. Maryland, what made you pick that one?
So there's a couple things that I knew I needed in an Ironman. First, I'm a college professor, so I have a very strict schedule about when I can do something like away from here and when I really need to be here on campus teaching with my students. And also, I knew I didn't want to peak out for an Ironman at a stressful time during the semester. So like things like Arizona would be great since it's usually the week before Thanksgiving, but then I'm peaking during midterms. And that's a bad idea. So the rhythm of my life in academia had to fit with the rhythm of the Ironman cycle. So I needed something that was either going to happen over the summer or like early fall. The second was that I had a very traumatic relationship with my bike after all that hill training. We live somewhere that's very flat. There's really no hills near our house. You have to drive about a half hour to find hills. So like all of our hill rides, weekday nights, if it was a 90-minute hill ride, we would have to get the bikes in the car, drive for a half hour, spend 90 minutes on the hills, drive for a half hour. It just became a huge problem, like a thing, and it was traumatic and I hated it. So I was like, no hills, right? I don't want to do another hilly Ironman. I hated that training cycle. Hills have advantages. I'm an Athena athlete, and gravity is my friend on the downhills, but
enemy on the uphills too, though.
I know. I didn't want to do it. Also, I had acquired, at the end of the season last season, I acquired a time trial bike. I did my Ironman on a steel road bike.
Yeah. When we first got those bikes, we weren't sure if we were going to be going in the triathlon or whatnot. So we're like, let's get something that's decent, but nothing too crazy, because we want something that we'd be able to like just casually ride on also.
So we have these
Right.
Kona wheelhouses. They're great bikes.
Oh, great bikes, fantastic bikes.
But they're heavy as hell. They're
Yeah.
steel. So I found a carbon fiber time trial bike, and I was like, I really want to put this thing through its paces, which means I need a flat course. So like my desire to use my bike, coupled with like when my time constraints were, coupled with my desire for a flat course, meant like I had a choice of like 3 Ironman races, and Maryland was just the most feasible because looking at the state of the pandemic, we're pretty sure that races are going to be kind of questionable early in the season next year. So
You're going to drive there?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna drive.
Yeah. It's
Because
about
shipping the bike for me is like, it's always like the deal breaker.
Oh yeah.
I do not want to ship my bike at all.
We're
I
doing
could buy a plane ticket to Europe, or
we're doing
Right.
we're doing Alcatraz in 2022.
Oh, nice. You were going to do that one this year, right?
Yeah,
Right.
we were. So we
That
deferred to 2022, and that was really smart because we were
Yeah.
on that. But we're gonna rent bikes when we're out there. Like, even just cross country, I don't want to ship my bike.
but Alcatraz is an 18-mile ride,
Yeah,
right? Like I can do that on a Schwinn.
Yeah, just
Don't
rent
need
something. You'll be
anything.
fine.
Yeah.
Get a
So-
tricycle.
Yeah, right. Like a big wig, like
Big wheel.
big wheel.
Yeah, those fat tire bikes. Like some guy actually rode Lake Placid on a fat tire bike, and he almost made the bike ride. He just barely missed it.
I saw
Um,
I saw that video.
Yeah, and then people gave him crap because he asked if he could go out on the run because he did finish the bike. He just missed the cutoff, and they told him, yeah, go out on the run, but if you finish, it doesn't count. Like you're disqualified. So they told him it was okay, and then people gave him crap for misusing the course when he shouldn't have been out there. But that's garbage. Anyway,
I don't understand. Hang on, this is the tangent worth mentioning. I don't understand. People are like, "Oh, you didn't finish." Like, yeah, you did.
Yeah, I agree.
The
I
fact-
agree. It's
The fact of
just-
the matter is, with the way they start, there's tons of people who will miss the swim cutoff by a couple of seconds or a minute or so, or they miss the bike cutoff by a few minutes, but they're into transition like 10 minutes before it closes. So they just, Ironman doesn't stop them. They just keep going, they just go through, and then, at the end of the day, they don't get an official finish because they missed one of the cutoffs.
Yeah.
So, I don't see don't give
Yeah, I agree.
crap for that,
Just
you
and
Not
especially if they can finish the course in time, and what's the difference anyway?
Yeah.
It's one thing if they have resources, reopening the roads and stuff. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna be on the road when they need to reopen, that's a different story. But I mean, and I'm on board with saying you don't get an official finish, right? Because we have to have rules on where the cutoffs are stuff, because there's various things associated, from points for Ironman's frequent fire program or whatever. You absolutely enforce those, but you don't need to give somebody crap because they missed it off by a minute.
I gotta say, that was one thing about my Tremblant finish. There was never in the history of the internet has this happened. There's only one single person who was a jerk to me about it on the internet, and
Wow.
yeah, and immediately the entire Tremblant Facebook group was like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
They shut that down.
Yeah, that's
And,
good.
I'm like,
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I get, I actually, believe it or not, I've never gotten anything about, I finished in 17 hours, 0 minutes and 50 something seconds. And, I got through that day, and I was like, that 52 seconds, it didn't really bother me because I didn't think I had that in the tank. I felt like I was done. I gave it everything I had. I didn't have a second more. And then as the years have kind of gone by, I'm like, oh, that starts to bother me a little bit more, but not because I did, I don't discount it, or I don't, and I finished one before under 17 hours. So it's not like I think I'm not an Ironman or anything, but it's just, it does bother me, and it makes me want to go out and do it again. So, it's, I don't know, it's one of those annoying things.
Understandable. So for example, every once in a while, the fact that I missed that bike cutoff by a few minutes bothers me. I've gone back and taken a look at the Garmin data. I was like, okay, how much time did I spend in transition? I can actually tell how much time it took me to go back and grab my sunglasses in transition. And, I've added all that time up. I was like, I probably still wouldn't have made it. But it's, that kind of, especially with something that is as long as an Ironman, you're like, I could have shaved off 2 minutes off that. I had 10 and a half hours to shave off 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Can I tell you,
maybe,
I have
right?
so I've done Lake Placid now 3 times, and it's a very hilly course, and I've done it at different weights. Like I was 200 pounds, I was 220, and I was 235. And when I got to tell you, I was the best cycling shape I was ever in. I was 220, and I finished that year, or 225, whatever was in the middle there, and it was still hard. I was slower than when I was 200 and not in as good cycling shape, but I weighed 20, 25 pounds less. And it was just amazing how dropping that weight made it such a more easy ride. But like you said, I mean, Maryland being flat, that's, yeah.
About watts per kilo, right?
Yeah, it's incredible how much, and I was in the best cycling shape of my life last year. But anyway, so a couple of things about, Danielle, about the courses that you mentioned. One, Arizona. Don't worry about that one. I'm going to tell you a story about Arizona. I went to go get my coaching certification there. I'm like, let me go for a swim in the Ironman lake. It was the middle of summer. And they're like, you can't swim in that lake. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's disgusting. It's gross. They only let people swim in it. So they treat it like 2 weeks beforehand, before the race. And that's the only time they let people swim in it. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about Arizona.
Oh, gross.
However,
So gross.
I'll take you over to Maryland and tell you that, you might have to worry about the jellies.
I know. I also have worked through some serious open water anxiety. And living in Buffalo, we swim in the Great Lakes. There's nothing in the Great Lakes, right? There's like big catfish maybe, but there's no wildlife. And that's really the only reason that I got over my open water fear. And Tremblant, obviously, it's a mountain lake. There's, fish. Yeah. Like it's very clear.
Right.
It's potable. So this is going to be a big change this year for sure. But I figure it'll be good to have like current and wildlife before I decide to jump into the San Francisco Bay where there's great white.
Yeah, you don't need that. But no, they'll when you get to Maryland, they'll gloss it over. They'll call them sea nettles, which sounds much prettier than jellyfish. But they sting the same nonetheless. I actually didn't get stung when I did it, but everyone else seemed to. So I don't know what I did to repel them, but maybe I swam slow enough that they were already they were full. They had no stinging stuff left, no stinging juice left by the time we got there. But I will tell you also that, and I'm sure you've heard this, is that the wind in Maryland is oftentimes like just a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I just remember pedaling and thinking, all right, I've been pedaling. I feel like I'm pedaling pretty hard. And I keep my Garmin on my handlebars, and I look down to see. I don't have a computer, but I use my Garmin, and I was going 8 miles an hour.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And it was flat, and I'm like, and normally I'd be going like 17, 18 miles an hour. I look down and going 8, and a lady passes me, and she's like, I bet you never dealt with this wind before. I'm like, no, I didn't. And it was the beginning of the race. You just got to keep going and see how it goes. And then the back end, I did. The road opened up, and there was a very slim shoulder, and a truck was coming around the corner, and it was like when you mentioned it before, Mike, about the truck getting close to you on the highway. Same thing for me, but I was actually in race. It's only a small portion of the course that's kind of open to traffic, or that it's a little bit fuzzy, I guess. By that time in the race, it was like mile 110, and there was like nobody around me.
Yeah.
So it was just me. And I think the guy we're going around a corner. The guy was going to give me plenty of space, and then a car started coming from this way, so he had to kind of move over. And I'm like riding the bike, and
Oh my god!
but and then I tell you, the run is fun. I mean, there's a little hill, a couple hill parts, but nothing crazy. Not as bad as Tremblant. Just cobblestone part, which is a little bit weird. I always feel like it's a little dangerous. You might turn your ankle. But then you go into the town and you turn around, and it's awesome because you run through the town, and people will cheer you on. It's a good race. It's definitely a good race.
I'm looking forward. I signed up for it, and I didn't have that. Like, you sign up for your first Ironman, and there's that like excited, nervous thing. And I signed up for this one, and I was kind of numb about it. But I gotta say, 2020 being 2020, I'm like, am I gonna feel joy ever again? But
Yeah.
like slowly, I'm starting to get excited. So that's a good thing. I think. I hope.
Yeah. And I mean, are you like, do you have any goals for this race, or are you just to finish,
Well, I mean, a tidy PR would be nice, right? Like, I think at this point, it's a question of not will I PR, but like by how much.
It sounds like, I mean, you've been with the amount of run volume you've been doing. It sounds like, you probably have a one up, especially in training, at least going after training. And
Yeah,
And,
it looks like I'm well positioned. Just from my marathons perspective, it looks like I'm well positioned to take at least a half-hour chunk off my marathon this year. Shooting for something. So my PR marathon was my first ever marathon, the Mount Desert Island Marathon, which is hilly as hell. So, but I was 30 pounds lighter and spring chicken in 2016. So, 5 hours and 50 minutes. I haven't broken 6 since 2016. I'm like sort of looking at like a 5:30 to 5:45 finish this year if the race goes the way I expect it to. So that's a significant amount of time off a marathon. And then we have special needs cats and they fall sometimes. So between the new bike and the flat course and change in training, we're looking at different training styles and things for
the coach probably helps you out too. I mean, you guys each have sort of, now you got personalized plans and you can kind of attack your weaknesses a little bit, more pointedly, I guess. And it sounds like you guys are on the right track and doing the right things. So
here's hoping, right? Well, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, like I talk a big game about a PR marathon, but my foot has to get better and I have to actually run it, right? So
yeah. Well, we'll be following you. We'll definitely see how you guys do in the Marine Corps virtual coming up. And definitely rooting for you in the Ironmans next year. So thank you guys for coming today. This was a good little chat. It was great to catch up.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, it was awesome. Anything else that I missed, by the way, or are you guys? We touch on everything.
If you want to find me on Instagram,
let's do that.
At Dr. Iron Danny, DRIRONDANI. Our cats have an Instagram, but I don't think that matters.
It was Aries.
Yeah, we have Aries and Artemis.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Isn't there? That's what is that, Greek, or is that?
It's both.
Yeah, it's both. We took one from each.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thanks again for coming on, and we look forward to cheering you on this week and next year as well.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right, guys, that was the Rosvally family, Danielle and Michael. I'm rooting for them wholeheartedly in the year ahead. I thank them both for coming on the show. And remember, every day is an ordinary day unless you make it extraordinary. So get after it, guys.